Okay, so we're looking at the Netlify version, and you know what we can do at this point? We've got quite a bit going on. We can actually open a new tab, search for HTML validator. There it is. Looking for the W3C. Come back into our tab, copy that URL, go in there, and do a check. And this is what we want to see. And just to make sure that we start with a good starting point, I'm going to also find the CSS validator, which the one I like to use starts, for whatever reason, it starts with the word jigsaw. So when I see this in the URL, I feel confident of using this validator. And again, I get congratulations, no error. So we're in a very good starting point for the next part, which is the styling. And we created a brand new class called Gallery, and that's something that we can use for our styling. And in fact, the first thing we want to do is actually borrow the styling that we have already created for the About Me class. And you'll notice this very important comma here. If we leave that comma out, it will validate, because it's actually an okay statement. The problem is it will not do what we want it to do. We want this padding to apply both to the About Me section and the gallery. And the only way to do that, if we think of, actually the word and, what we're creating is a list, and to show one list item after another, we're using the comma. So that's the kind of structure we need inside our styles.css. So we're going to find this in our styles.css. We're looking for the About Me. There it is. And we're going to put the cursor right past the word About Me, type a comma, and very importantly, we're going to use the dot that says this is a class, and type gallery, and make sure that the name, the spelling, matches between the two files. So we can go ahead and save that. Come back to live server, and if we look at Netlify, that hasn't changed. We can see that what's happened is we've moved things over a little from hugging the very leftmost part of the screen. I call this giving it a little breathing room. So we do that with padding, and we'll obviously talk much more about padding and using the box model. But that's the effect that we've got. So that's done. And then it says at the bottom of your CSS, we're going to put a new rule for the figure element. Now, not the class. So there's no dot. Elements have no dots in selectors. So we have a figure element, and it says find the right property rule to make it so that the text is center aligned. And let's say I'm not quite sure what that means. So maybe I will copy text is centered align, open up a new tab, and the string CSS is great because there's very few things that you can Google search that if you type CSS, it's going to be something other than CSS. So I like to, if I'm looking up HTML, I will type HTML. If I'm looking for something with CSS, I will type CSS. Now let me paste in the rest of it. CSS text is center aligned. And look at that. CSS Tricks is Chris Coyer's site. And there's the rule that we need. We've actually seen that rule before. We used it in footer. Let's go back once again. So we're going to make close to the bottom of the page, we're going to make a figure element and find the right property rule, which we have. It's text dash align colon center semicolon. And we're going to be surprised that that's all we need. So I'm actually going to put a comment here because it's no longer part of the footer, it's part of a figure. And these comments help me to find things more quickly. So we have figure, no dot, space, curlies, bring that, open up that for a new line, text dash, and you can see the editor has found it for me. And as soon as I click on that, my editor gives me center as my first option. I click on that, the editor put in the colon and the semicolon for me. So I can save again. I'm working just locally, so I can come over here to the version that is live server, and sure enough, look at that. I've got the photo gallery, pictures, but now the pictures are nicely centered. Got horizontal rules between here and here. Let's go to the instructions. There's one more thing that it says. It says for every image on your page, every image, not just the 3 that we've been working on, but every image, we want to have a maximum width of 100% of its parent. So again, let's just check that out. CSS, you know, it's maximum width of its parent. Copy that. Google search, CSS, maximum width of 100%. Make an image. So here's Stack Overflow, which can be a really good resource, but we have to get really used to it. Width, full width containers and limited width parents. I have no idea what that means. Tail of a width and max width. You know what? I think I'm going to go to this one in W3 Schools. Like Mozilla, which is a great tutorial resource, W3 Schools is also a great resource for providing tutorials for us web developers. So I'll click on that one, and here I have something called max width. And max width defines the maximum width of an element. I was looking for the word parent. It doesn't actually talk about it in the terms of a parent, but here it is. No, it's not. But the big thing to understand about max width, which is why I wrote the instructions like I did, the max width is telling the browser if you're going to resize something for an image for whatever reason, it's never going to be allowed to be bigger than the thing that it is inside of. So we're not saying, let's say, if you remember, our images are now 320. If we put this in here, it would not be 160 pixels. It's not 50% of itself. it's 50% of its parent. And that becomes very useful later on. But what we want to do is we want to protect our images in case we have to use a large image. It's never going to be bigger than the parent that it's inside. When we have a situation like that, oftentimes the browser tries to compensate by creating a horizontal scroll, and that's something that's frowned upon. We can have as much vertical scroll as we want because we're all trained to scroll vertically, but especially on mobile devices, we shouldn't be seeing any horizontal scroll. So it says to put that new rule declaration right after the body declaration in our styles.css, right after the body. So let's go through here. And the body, if you remember, is the parent of all content that shows on the page. So by convention, we often choose to put the body declaration up at the top. So it said right after that, so I'm going to click on this 2 new lines because our formatting rules say there's always an empty line between declaration blocks. So we're going to have it right there. The thing that we're styling is an IMG element, no dot because it's an element. Anytime we can say element, we have no dot. Every time we say class, then we have to have a dot. So we have IMG, curlies, bring that open like that, max width 100%. Excuse me a moment, I have to move the dog. There we go. We'll save this. We actually will probably not see any changes inside our page, but we're adding this for protection so that when we add more and more images, or maybe we'll swap an image out, we won't accidentally break our layout when we start playing with layout. So we're going to add that, and you can see here it actually says default settings, so this is a good place to put that. We could always change this value for a particular image, but you'll see this often in CSS. It's a good sort of good thing to do. So again, we'll save. And as I said, we don't really see any differences, but we just know it's there for security. So I can come to Git. I guess it was already open. Let me close these. Look at this. I've got nothing in red, which is great. I'll click on the Git icon and say add styles. Check mark that and push. Watch it finish here and there. Come to the GitHub repo, refresh. There's my new commit message, add styles. And we have to remember which is which. We're looking for a change in our Netlify. Sometimes it takes a moment or two to deploy. We can refresh, and there we are. We can double check again, validate, but we didn't see anything in VS Code, so we feel very good. Yep, no problems. Come back. We don't even have to paste it in. It's the same URL. Check it. Congratulations, no error found. So that's it for this video. Let me see, we'll have one more video and just talk about whatever else is missing.